Get up. Time to run the hurry up with Dan Graziano. This one sounds weird, but stick with me. The Raiders have as many quarterbacks on their roster as DNs. Doesn't sound sustainable, Dan. What does this mean?
It is not. The Raiders are not likely to have 4 quarterbacks on their roster when they open the season next Monday night. But it says a lot about how sort of uneasy John Gruden is at the position right now. He needs a backup or two to Derek Carr, who is the starter. But remember, Derek Carr not on the most solid ground out there either. He has 1 year left on his contract, no guaranteed money after this year. So a lot of potential changes at that position, not only in the next couple weeks, but maybe in the next year or two.
All right, to Washington, and maybe the most unique holdout. Trent Williams still holding out, no end in sight. What's the latest?
Biggest holdout that no one's talking about. Trent Williams in Washington, the starting left tackle, a premier left tackle, has not been there all through camp. This is not necessarily about the contract. There's a personal issue between him and the team with the medical staff and the way they handled an issue of his during the offseason. No one has any idea how to resolve this. They don't want to trade him. They didn't trade him this weekend. This goes on without any end in sight.
All right, let's go to the Patriots, where they cut Brian Hoyer over the weekend. What does this mean for rookie Jarrett Stidham?
Well, it means he's the backup quarterback to Tom Brady, and that's a big deal. Are the Patriots confident with a rookie quarterback as the only fallback should something happen to Brady? The answer is obviously yes. They move on from Hoyer, a player they trusted a lot to do all kinds of things for them, run the scout team, all kinds of stuff veteran quarterbacks do that they're now asking of Jarrett Stidham, an untested rookie. It signals that maybe down the road they think Stidham can evolve into the successor to Brady, but of course, believing that requires an understanding of how much longer Tom Brady is going to play, and I don't have one.
Yeah, nobody has any idea. Do you think Hoyer ends up signing in Indy? Obviously, maybe an opening there.
That makes a lot of sense, Hoyer in Indy, because they could use a veteran backup behind Jacoby Brissett, but there are a lot of teams that are in that same boat, and I think Brian Hoyer is fielding a lot of interest right now and should have some choices.
Greeny, what I think this really means for Jarrett Stidham, if he gets maybe 2-3 starts, he ends up getting $80 million to play somewhere else. That's just the way it works there.
It worked for Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see if it works for him as well. Let's look, meanwhile, at the situation in Miami. The Dolphins named Ryan Fitzpatrick the Week 1 starter, so he beat out, and I'm putting that in air quotes, Josh Rosen for the job. The Dolphins will be the 5th team Fitzpatrick starts for in an opener, which ties a record held by 3 others. I'm not 100% sure that's a record you really want. Now, here's what Louis Riddick tweeted yesterday about Josh Rosen. He tweeted, Josh Rosen could not have asked for a more bad start. You see the emoji, I can't read it, to his career from an organizational support standpoint. I don't care if you like the kid or not personally. He's been set up to fail. Nice job. Riddick also tweeted about Stidham, who, Sam, you were just talking about. Let's put it this way. All of those that were screaming that quarterback Jarrett Stidham sucked while he was at Auburn, do you think if he'd been drafted by Miami, he'd be doing now what he just did for the Patriots? Hell no, and we know why. So I want to bring this out to you guys. We say this regularly here on our show. More quarterbacks are ruined than developed at the NFL level. So if you just look at that, Josh Rosen, super high draft pick, all the expectations in the world. So far, not good. He's been in Arizona, Miami, total incompetence, if you will. Meanwhile, Jarrett Stidham comes in no expectations at all in New England, and so far looks really good because he's in the best organization. Is it as simple as that?
Yeah, I mean, the reality, to make it an analogy, is Josh Rosen's foundation has been built on quicksand. There's never structure to it. It's always changing, and it's really just a sinking ship. That's what his career foundation has been built upon, and Jarrett Stidham is sitting on concrete. He's in the healthiest organization, proven track record, a legend in front of him. The expectations are low. He doesn't have to go forced to learn an offense and learn NFL defense and win football games and be our savior, where Josh Rosen comes in with this expectation. And that's what's allowed Stidham to play well this preseason, is the structure and the concrete of a base around him.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you look at Josh Rosen, going back to UCLA, I mean, he's had different offensive systems year after year after year. Yeah, and if you, how can you expect a young quarterback to fully reach his potential when every year there's constant change? Dan, you and you and I both know that the only way to be successful when you get that to the elite level is you got to have continuity. And that's the one thing that Josh Rosen hasn't had, and Jarrett Stidham is walking into that.
And look, the Dolphins are flat out tanking this season, and so it's going to be very difficult for them to evaluate Rosen one way or the other. We'll talk about that in our next hour. But I would also say this. If you look at the Patriots' decision here, part of it also probably rests on the idea that if Brady gets hurt, the way they're looking at it is we're dead no matter what. It doesn't matter if we have Brian Hoyer, so you might as well see if the young kid can be developed.
Oh, absolutely. But the infrastructure with New England, even if Brady would get hurt, I mean, I've seen Coach Belichick work with Matt Castle, who hadn't played since like high school, and still go on to win 11 games. You just never know in New England.
People forget that. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs that year, but they did go 11-5 with Matt Castle as their quarterback. All right, we'll have more football as we go, but did you see the history that was made yesterday in Toronto? It was Justin Verlander on the mound for the Astros, and he was sensational. That's one of his 14 strikeouts on the day. He reaches 250 strikeouts on the season for the 5th time in his career. But of more pressing import, he took a no-hitter into the 9th. Now, the problem is it was a scoreless game going to the top of the 9th. So the Astros needed to score in order to give Verlander a chance for the no-no. And Abraham Toro says, I got this one for you. With a runner at 3rd and 2 out, he knocks that one out of the ballpark off of Ken Giles. And so Verlander's got the 2-0 lead that he needs. It's his job to take care of the rest. Here we go. Bottom of 9. Brandon Drury leading off. Brandon Drury is the first out of the inning, and we're 2 outs away. Reese McGuire to the plate. Reese McGuire to the bench, and we're 1 out away. They would go full count on Bo Bichette. There's a grounder to 3rd, and there it is. Justin Verlander's 3rd career no-hitter, allowed just 1 base runner, struck out 14. What a day.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't know that the list of guys that thrown 3 instead of 2 gets pretty small. And, it's just such an incredible moment and something that you get to celebrate with your teammates, which other than a World Series and winning championships, these team victories like this are few and far between. So I'm going to enjoy this one.
Listen, Justin Verlander has been the best pitcher in the sport since being traded to Houston 2 years ago. You can see that from the massive list of categories. He ranks 1st in all of them amongst pitchers in either league. And so we are delighted to bring in the one, the only Tim Kirchin for this conversation. Tim, I'm old enough to remember when Justin Verlander was done. Remember? Everyone thought he was absolutely finished. How has he had this rebirth, and how do you put it into perspective what he is doing?
Well, he's a wildly competitive guy, Greeny. He once told me that as he's walking along the street, he has to walk in front of everybody else and get to the door first. I said, why is that? He goes, well, that's just the way that I am. I played in a golf tournament with him where he drove a par 4 that we were putting on twice. He won the long drive, and his team was minus 22 that day. I asked him at the turn, what's your score? He goes, we're 2 under birdie, meaning he's so competitive, they can't even rate this as being under par. You have to be under birdie in a scramble. That's who he is.
And is he right now the best pitcher in the sport?
Well, right now he might be, because he might win the Cy Young this year. And that would be 2 Cy Youngs for him. He's got 3 seconds. He's got a 3rd. He's got an MVP. And when you look at his career wins, winning percentage, and strikeouts, the only 2 pitchers in the history of the game that can match all 3 of those thresholds are Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson. That is the category that Justin Verlander has put himself in. First ballot Hall of Famer for sure.
Correct. He's walking into the Hall of Fame. Quickly, I want to talk about the National League wild card race because it's been a very up and down couple of weeks here. The Nationals and Cubs currently have the 2 spots. Phil's 2.5 out. You see it there. Brewers, Mets are falling like crazy. Here we are in the first week of September, Tim. Which team is facing a make or break week in front of them?
All 4 of those teams at the bottom are in a make or break, but mostly the Mets. The Mets now have to go into Washington, where the Nationals are really good, and basically sweep if they're going to have any chance of making the playoffs, and that's not going to happen. Because starting today, the next 14 games for them are against playoff contenders, and the Mets are just a little bit short, and so are those other teams.
What happened with the Mets? The month of August, they were dead and buried right before the trade deadline. We all thought they would sell. They didn't. Then they caught fire in a way that I don't think almost anyone expected. And then almost as quickly as that, it has fallen apart. What happened?
Well, they caught fire against a bunch of teams that were struggling, which is their job to beat up on bad teams. They did it. They have since now played a bunch of good teams, and I think all the energy it took to get them back into the race kind of wore them down, but mostly the competition is way better than they were facing earlier than that.
The great Tim Kirchin is with us. It's going to be a busy day for it. Great to see you, as always, Timmy. Thank you. We've got a Labor Day doubleheader today on ESPN. We start at 1 Eastern. Aaron Judge and the Yankees hosting the Rangers, followed by a key interleague matchup as you get the Astros visiting Christian Yelich and the Brewers. Both games are on ESPN and live on the ESPN app. As we continue, a new deal for Zeke Elliott could be done any second, or this could go on into the regular season. How many games will he play for the Cowboys this year? We answered that and more. Get Up on ESPN.